Hello, everybody. This is Christian from Blue vs. Orange TCG, coming back to you with another deck list and interview, courtesy of fellow Minnesotan Micah. Say hello, Micah.
Hello.
So Micah, so we got something spicy here, as you usually cook up. So you got a rally deck list that you took to the September Titan 1 tournament this season, and you made top 4 with it. So first of all, congratulations on that. Second of all, this deck looks wild. This deck looks absolutely wild.
Yeah, it's definitely so basically going into the tournament, I knew that I was gonna be gone for at least one round. Luckily, Dan and the Vector Sigma guys were nice enough to give me an extension. But going into it, I was like, okay, I know I'm gonna be gone around. I'm gonna play something somewhat stock, so I went with Rally, newly unbanned in the format, and it was like, who's a good character to go along with Rally? Well, Perceptor is just a big, beefy hitter that likes having other characters as distractions, which Bumblebee is very much so. And then Huffer's just one of the best 5-star Autobot support characters.
Yeah, there's no question on that. Did you ever feel like, I have to ask right away too, as someone I've played a lot of Perceptor, did you, I would have never considered this exact lineup for a Perceptor style deck, but did you ever feel like the flip intensiveness of both Perceptor and Rally, for kind of to a certain extent, I wouldn't call him the most flip intensive centerpiece character, but like he definitely likes to flip to get to that supporting fire ability in alt mode. Did you ever feel like there was a lot of conflict in the deck, or was it not too much of a big deal?
Honestly, I didn't feel it like it. So part of why I chose it too is you kind of have like this two-pronged attack, not literally, but you do have like a two-pronged attack like game plan where Bumblebee does his job by hitting the decks that have like a priority character, for example, OA Jetfire, or other decks that like rely on specific characters who they want to bury. Like if Overlord ever came back, he's a way to like chip in on the Overlord and ignore like they're little idiots. But other matchups, Perceptor is kind of your carry, and if you know the match is gonna go long and you think you can win a long game, you just flip Perceptor and do that to just grind the game out. For example, I had a round against Heralds, shout out Yukwari, and Perceptor was the game plan I decided to go with, knowing that it was aggro, and with B kind of being the focus point, he's not gonna get to use his supporting fire ability enough, and Perceptor had like 8 to 10 cards underneath him by the end of the game, and was just able to kill the characters after Bumblebee just was the focus. And that's part of going into it too. I play a ton of resets, so, despite only having the one car, and that lets you kind of focus who you want to have take the damage.
That makes a lot of sense. I love how you say you play a lot of resets, and you definitely play like the 3 of turbo boosters, very very Cars-like, and then you got this sick 1 of start your engines and 1 of ready for action. Because obviously, who needs 3 starter engines when you can run the 1 of ready for action and untap your Perceptor, which I saw you do at least 2 to 3 times in the event, and it looked amazing every single time.
Oh yeah, when you have like a 10 attacker that you're just like, okay, untap them, and then it also just, in a way, like screws with the opponent's mental when you have a Perceptor flip and they see like ready for action in there, along with like grenade launchers and other attack boosts, because it's like, alright, do you want to have one of my guys hit hard, or do you want my guy who hits hard already to hit you again?
Yeah, can't really say that's a bad thing. Can't really say that's a bad thing at all. What were some of your matches look like through the Swiss round and your top 8 rounds?
Yeah, so in the Swiss, I played Orion Pax Off-Road Patrol in the first round. Just got completely smoked, unfortunately, but that was a match where like I didn't see the resets, and I mean that's kind of how this deck like lives and dies, by the resets and B not getting chunked for a bunch of damage initially, and that deck just hits hard with every character, even the little guys like Tote. So
shout out to Tote.
Bumblebee's starting out with a huge chunk of damage on him, and so if you don't find those resets, you're you don't get the time to set up the backup plan of Perceptor. And they're wider than a deck like Heralds are, where you can get that extra time for Perceptor. Second round I did play, speaking of Heralds, I did play Heralds in round 2. And that one I took down, that was just, went with the Perceptor game plan, tried to just get to the point where I could one-shot every character after doing some chip damage with the other guys, and Perceptor really pulled its weight, especially when you hit like cards like Showing Off, which are both a supporting fire in this list and a potential like draw engine that also gives you attack.
Shoot.
So by doing that, you get to basically stack your attacker while also finding threats you need.
Shoot. I didn't even consider the Showing Off for flipping Legendary B again. That's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yep, and then third round I played against OA Jetfire, and that was a matchup I went into this. So for people who don't know, this was the first tournament in a while for Titan 1 that the Metroplex stratagem was unbanned, as well as the Rally stratagem that I went with, and the Jetfire from Wave 1 stratagem. And you basically, those decks require different answers at different times. For example, if you want to target Rally, you should be playing cards like Lose the Initiative. Metroplex really hates cards like End Hostilities, Belligerence, and Gyroblaster. Whereas Jetfire requires the non-scrap upgrade interaction. Like Disarms or Catch Off Guards, Take by Surprises. So going into this, I knew I couldn't have enough sideboard slots for all those decks, so I basically said I'm not losing to Jetfire. Always a hilarious card, but it's like one of those cards that is semi-tilting to have it happen to, and that's just not something I like losing to. So I went into it with the plan of Chrome Dome to board in to replace Perceptor, because Chrome Dome just is really good against OA and lets you sit there to... If you hold them unflipped, they can never pick up OAs on greens, at least when attacking, because you're just going to take it, unless they have multiples. But that's also why you have cards like Counter Espionage, because if you whiff on like taking an OA, you can always just counter like their next best card, or have a backup plan. But then I also had stuff like Disarms and another Take by Surprise and an Absorption Core just going into that matchup. I knew it was one that I wanted to not lose to, like I said, so game 1 I got OA'd. It happens, but post-board I won the 2 post-board games, and game 3 was really funny because the Rally stratagem got to show what it does and get you that extra width with your 11 or your 10-star character. And by having all those resets and just extra cards, I was able to kill his Jetfire before it got to attack. And at that point, the game is essentially over. And then, fourth round, I ended up not end up playing a match. My opponent ended up we weren't able to make a time work. So they were nice enough to concede.
Nice.
And round 1 of top 8, Metroplex. That was a matchup I actually thought was going to be, like, I didn't feel very advantaged at all. Even though, like, on paper it should be Rally favored, just because if they swing into your Bumblebee, that you get to untap again, even if they hit the trigger. Which is what Metroplex really wants to do. But in gameplay, it was very close, and Huffer ended up pulling his weight with the Sturdy, along with getting those extra attacks. Yeah. And then, of course, you and I played in the semifinals, and I got my butt kicked by Hot Rod, who went undefeated in Swiss.
Hot Rod, baby. Yeah, I have to say, like, I remember trying to watch as many of your Swiss games as possible, because, one, Team Minnesota, you gotta represent and follow that team, obviously. Yep. But two, I mean, I think out of all the decks out on the field, I thought yours was one of the most innovative. because I think for one, you're one of the few people in the field that played in this tournament that actually like decided to take on the rally stratagem, even after its unbanning in Titan 1. I think a lot of people can underestimate this stratagem, right? Like, obviously when you look at it, like it's super good, but like one of the most powerful things of this stratagem, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, or if your thoughts or experiences are different on this, but every time I played Rally, like the heal 3 and untap is super good, but like just the fact that you just get the extra 1/1/1 for all your stats in every mode is surprisingly just so like meaningful over the course of the game, right? Like actually being like a 11-star, becoming 11-star character that has this almost
5-16-2 and then 6-16-2.
Yeah, and then if he's by himself in bot mode, which did you ever get that to fire off where he becomes the 8-16-4 in
Unfortunately, no. I never got to do the giant Bumblebee just swing in, delete someone with the free Matrix armor, or Magnus armor.
Armor, yeah. But that's also like not your strategy, right? Like Bumblebee should be like shouldn't be the last character left. It should be Perceptor based off this deck.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too, with like talking about how the heal and the untap is like the biggest like thing people underestimate with the stratagem. That is the key. I'll say this right now. That is the key to being able to play Perceptor with this deck. Because it allows you to guarantee a Perceptor flip before he has to attack if the game demands it. So if it's a matchup where you do not need to supporting fire someone, or you don't think you need to supporting fire someone, you get to turn 1 flip your Perceptor and swing B in with his 5 attack side, after the rally, so the car mode. And if they hit the black pip, which forces an untap, or they deal like any sort of damage to you, you're gonna get basically the extra 1 character of width. And with that extra 1 character of width, it gives you enough time to flip Perceptor back on the following turn and just refill.
Yeah, and it gets you bigger, and it just fills your hand, and you can find untaps, right? Like I can't forget the moment when watching your top 8 match against Metroplex where he countered espionage and hostilities, got your set and hostilities, but then you flipped Perceptor to get another end hostilities from the flip, and I'm like, wow, that's so good. And this deck is super mid-rangey, right? And so like that's something that's also just gonna happen naturally. Like, and I wanna point a little attention to your color ratio. This is I think this is a very excellent color ratio for a mid-range deck. Like, you still not only like you're an aggressive shell deck, obviously, right? You're gonna be swinging for big numbers, but you have 30 orange pips still, while also having 14 blue pips. I find that incredibly impressive in deck building, because I enjoy playing mid-range style decks like this as well. But the colors can be difficult. I never seem to go more than 8. But you being able to just bring it up to 14 and 30 like that, I mean, I saw a lot of very, very nice flips on your side throughout the game. It was impressive, to say the least.
So that just goes down to kind of how I look at deck building too. Like, I mean, people in the Discord know, like, I'm known for brewing and unconventional stuff, but
Smurf tier.
It also comes down to like, from my Magic background, is I'll go back and look at decks that did well in the past to find like old tech and try to implement it in like the modern era. And if you look at the battle cards in my main deck, what wave does rollout with 1 flipped character who wants to flip and leap into battles in your aggro deck think of? That's wave 1.
That's wave 1, baby. It is straight wave 1.
I'm telling you, play leap into battles and play rollouts in your aggro decks, even if you don't care about flipping characters with the rollout, and you will be rewarded. Because especially now with cards like Belligerence and End Hostilities being printed into the game, those rollouts can pitch for greens, which I only have 4 of, so I did get a couple times where like those and Improvised Shields did get stuck in hand, to be fair, but that's what you have reboots for. But with Belligerence and End Hostilities, you get those as extra double pips.
Yeah. Oh, super true.
And that's big.
Yeah, especially like, you know, end hostilities with Huffer and the Sturdy flipping a lot of blues. Huffer's not taking any damage sometimes, and like that's your 5-drop, right? Like not being able to do damage to your 5-drop sets your opponent back so far in a game.
Oh yeah, I had so many games where like Huffer would be on like 5 damage, and I think it even came up in ours where Huffer had like 5 damage on him, and Perceptor was at like 3 or 4, and there was a big attack that could come in, and the attack just kind of had to go at Huffer. Like,
yeah, that was exactly how it went. I think I had to attack with my Sea Spray like to kill the Huffer, because if I didn't, I would have been like outnumbered, and I like in a really awkward way. So like the Huffer had to get out of there. But you know, sometimes you just get concerned, like, am I not going to kill this Huffer? Because Huffer just lives half the time, which is ridiculous. Speaking of like ridiculous, pointing at your deck list a little bit more, something that catches my eye is your upgrade suite. You have your least amount of upgrades is your weapons, which I find hilarious. You have more armors than you do weapons. You have more utilities than you do weapons. That's so funny to me.
So I think the armors is a little deceiving because 3 of them are improvised shields. However,
True.
with the blue ratio, improvised shield is a playable armor in this deck.
I've seen you play it. I've seen you play it.
And yeah, so if you look at the weapons though too, I also like chose to forego Fusion Bore in an aggro deck. That's because 4 of my 7 weapons are weapons that stick around. And I didn't expect a lot of sabotaged armaments this tournament, just based on how Titan 1 has kind of been developing. Oh, my dogs are going crazy.
Not a problem.
Yeah, so I have 4 of my 7 weapons that stick around, and 3 of those are grenade launchers, which are probably going on a low health Bumblebee or a Huffer swing, because Bumblebee and Perceptor normally want to keep the weapons that stick around because they have that extended health pool. And Perceptor flips let you dig into those weapons at times. Noble's Blaster has a green. Like, you will find a weapon when you need to. But also, all my utilities, except for the 1 stealthiness, which I can go over in a bit why that's there, give me an attack. So, the utilities all can function as an extra attack buff as well.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. You wanted to go over the stealthiness? Because that is a very, like, standout card amongst your upgrades, for sure.
Yeah. So, the stealthiness is actually bleed over from when, before my sideboard character was Chrome Dome, I had Wave 1 RC in the sideboard to combat just blue stall, and she's known for being very frail. However, if you stick a stealthiness on her, now they can't hit her, and you just get this consistent source of damage. That same philosophy can be kind of paired with what this deck is trying to do in general, with the 3 turbo boosters with 1 car, 1 start your engines with 1 car, rally as an untap, and ready for action, in that you are trying to control the tempo of the game with who your opponent can hit at all times. So if you have that 1 stealthiness, and you have a character who's low and not in burn range, you can basically say, I'm putting this stealthiness on, say, a low health Perceptor or a Huffer, and you're hitting my B who has like 2 health on him again, whether you want to or not.
Yeah, he just becomes this big like body bag that your opponent has to chew through. Did you ever feel the need to put the stealthiness on B to try to go for like the big like monster B at the end as the last character? Or...
not to go for the big monster B, but I did play a stealthiness on B to set up for a 2-attacker wheel turn, like a 2-attack turn prior to the wheel, where I had both Huffer and Bumblebee tapped, and I stealthinessed the Bumblebee for a turn, almost like Withdrawal Protocol, to give him just stealth for 1 turn, and then turbo boosted him the following turn, so that him and Perceptor got a swing.
Nice. That's huge. That's really cool. Shoot, man. Well, dang. Would you say, if you were to play this deck again, right? Because obviously it did very well, and looking at the deck list, I think it's a really good deck list. Just looking at it, is there anything that you felt was really like lackluster in the main or sideboard that you wanted to change out if you were to play this again at all?
Yeah, I think there's a couple changes I would make. To be honest, like I said, I did like the reboots personally. Like for like the getting rid of the cards with the cheating on the blue count, or not the blue count, the green count. I honestly might replace him with something else, like like a white-green pip of some sort. Maybe even like maybe even like it could be treasure hunt, yeah. And then I still have 2 whites, but like I'm gonna hit numbers that I want to anyway. And I've played decks with 1 or 2 whites before, and they've been fine. Like,
yeah.
My characters have enough base stats that getting the mass number of pips isn't necessary, and I have 3 armored assaults, 3 leap into battles, and a reckless charge for attack buffs. Like, I don't need bold.
Yeah, absolutely. Your deck isn't going for the huge bold, like huge flip on attack on flips numbers. So I think only like 2 1 flips would be fine. You can't count.
Yeah, I can't count the amount of times I had like only flipped 2 cards, and it was just like, yeah, swing for 11, swing for 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Even the belligerents, because you play a fair number of orange, blues, and blues, this can become like a +2, +3 easily.
Yep, you have 9 doubles if you play a belligerents, because you have improvised shield, matrixes, and rollouts.
You can't argue. You can't argue with those numbers. Well, really sweet, man. I really like this deck. Congratulations on top 4. During this time, we also have the ATP-1 set review coming into a year of ATP-1, and you were tasked, ironically, with covering the rally stratagem. Did you want to say some stuff about the rally stratagem over the course of the metagame at all?
I can definitely do that. So rally, when it was initially put out there, was one of those cards. Like, I'll be honest, when I saw rally initially, I said, what were they thinking making this card? Like, it's very strong in what it does. Like, a free untap, like, what in the world? And Legendary B, though, is always going to be a funny character, because, I mean, you know them, the Gall brothers. They pulled 4 Legendary Bs in Wave 1 before pulling Genesis Prime.
It's just standard at this point for Minnesota to have just an influx of these stupid Legendary Bs running around.
Yeah, and so I was like, cool, Legendary B gets love, but what is this stratagem? And then after seeing, like, I think Stefan was the one playing was playing Rally with the Chrome Dome and Night Racer early on in ATP-1, and just crushing people. However, now as the card has kind of been out there for a while, it was banned in Titan 1 initially, is getting unbanned now, and after it's come back, people have kind of learned how to play against it, and it's not the oppressive monster that it looks at first glance, which is why now I would consider it a hit, when at first glance I would say that it would have been a miss, but now it's definitely a hit, because now that it's the same with like a lot of characters, right? Like, you look at them and you're like, this is ridiculous, and then you play against it, you start learning the play patterns, how to play against them, and they're a lot more manageable. Like, you just know how to play around it, and if Bumblebee loses the roll and gets smacked right away, that feels terrible.
Yeah.
Like,
this is a super going first style deck. You don't want to be going second.
Right. And I think because of that, and now because of people knowing, like, if Rally is tapped, they can send their weakest attacker into Rally, and could even be a downside in playing so many blues. If I don't get attack damage taken on their attack into Rally, my B is tapped, and then they get to hit whoever I swing with next.
Yeah.
Like, they have to deal attack damage to trigger Rally.
Shoot, that's a scary thought. I didn't even consider that. That's 100% true. Yeah.
Especially against, like, the ASP Jetfire deck. Like, there was times where I wouldn't have untapped with B had there not been a black pip flipped. Like a Stormcloud swing. Like,
dude. That's wild that that's like a strategy, right? Like, maybe the best thing for me to do is do no damage on this swing. But it is sometimes the best play against Rally. You're 100% correct.
Yep.
And now people also can play like Lose the Initiative too. That people started playing after Rally started doing a lot better as people started playing him a lot more in events. Because when I recall with Rally, people didn't play him a whole lot in the beginning of ATP-1. People were really on some other things like Dinobots, Jetfire, Here's the Thing Jazz. He was one of the stratagems I remember people not playing right away, but as soon as he was being played, he saw success. It was a lot like you said. It just didn't. It's kind of a weird skill check. I want to say as like a deck, only because like it plays very differently. It looks like a cards list, and it is a cards list, but it's not your typical cards list, right? It does a lot. There's a lot of really funky things that Rally does as a whole, but yeah, I agree though.
Yeah.
100%.
The ideal damage to take as a Rally player is to take 4 so that you can keep your Energon Axe alive.
So does that happen to you?
Yes. There was a game where I took exactly 4 untapped with 1 damage to play an Axe.
Huge. This is so brutal. The fact that you had and you pulled it out of like your 43 card main deck, mind you. You found one of your 2 Energon Axes opening hand. That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
41, 42 cards is like normal for me going into these events, and that ready for action was the 43rd card because I just wanted 1 more reset.
That's awesome. Do you think with Rally going forward, like, do you think there's a reason for it ever to go back to full con and leave Titan 1, or do you think that the game with where we're at now with like answers and power level of other cards that have come out in later sets have actually brought it to like a point where it's like fine to have in the Titan 1 format?
I think it's a very good Titan 1 check for Legend Mode characters. Because a lot of times Legend Mode characters want to send themselves in first, so if you win that role with Rally, you get to hit their Legend Mode character. If, like, for example, against Orion packs off-roads, you have to hit the Orion packs.
Mm-hmm.
So you hit him, get him close to a Rising, and then they hit you. Hopefully you don't take too big of a chunk on the backswing, and then untap heal. You can send another character in, like a weaponed up Huffer to force the Arise. And then they're not going to send their Prime in next. Like, that deck wants to kind of baby behind the Prime after he arises, and then have him and Powertrain close it out.
100%.
But with the supporting fire, then, you can start hitting that Prime, like, after they're trying to go into, like, baby the Prime mode.
Sure.
And it's just a really good check for these Legend Mode characters who just want to have innate resets, or, like, innate untaps built into them. And even decks like we saw in the top 8 against Metroplex, where he deploys the drones to try to go a little bit wider. You get to, like, assassinate the drones and get extra attacks in. And it's... yeah, he's just an 11 stars is awkward. Like, that's an awkward deck building spot, so...
yeah.
You get to have, like, this 11-star character who's a check to a lot of powerful things in the Titan 1 format. I would say early on in the Titan 1 format, when he was initially banned, it was a good call, but then we saw as full constructed got a lot more powerful, Titan 1 got a lot more powerful with the addition of the Legend Mode characters. Him coming back is a very good check, and it doesn't feel like as oppressive as it was when it was initially banned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%. That's some really good insight into it and how he affects the metagame. Yeah, super good call. I agree with you on that.
And he just loses to Snapdragon. Like, if you really don't want to lose to B, play Snapdragon.
Yeah, Snapdragon makes B sad. But Snapdragon makes a lot of decks sad, to be fair.
So, the TLDR is play more Snapdragon.
Play more Snapdragon. I'm 100% for playing more Snapdragon. I agree with you on that. Well, very cool, man. Again, congratulations on the top 4. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we close off here?
I'm excited for ATP-5. I'm on the playtest team, and there's a lot of cool new toys coming. Some of it might help Rally. Some of it, some new toys that could be paired with him. There's a lot of just cool new stuff coming, so
absolutely
keep your eyes out for the future.
100%. I agree with you on that. Also being a part of the playtest team. There's some fun stuff out there. I think.
Oh yeah, this new set's gonna be sweet.
Oh yeah, 100%. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time for showcasing your deck and talking here today. I hope you have a good day and take care, everybody. All right. See ya.
You too, man. Nice talking.
Absolutely. See ya.
See ya.